Hey everyone, I hope you guys are enjoying Monster Hunter Rise or Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak in whichever platform you're choosing to play it on. And today I wanted to go ahead and discuss something really interesting that came across my feed regarding the new kindred love spirits that have been bonded regarding Tears of the Kingdom and Monster Hunter players, as essentially one of the very quick clips that we got to see in the latest Tears of the Kingdom. I believe it was the last trailer that Nintendo's going to be putting out for that game before it ultimately releases. They showcase a Link holding a weapon that has been, of course, fused. We're going to be talking about the fusing mechanic in a second, where essentially it looks like a charge blade weapon. And it's just so interesting to see how people instantly picked up on that. It came across my feed, and certainly I wanted to quickly talk about it, because if at the end of the day that game's, let's say, fusing mechanic and perhaps unfusing it is something that they haven't teased, but of course it could potentially be possible, it would turn pretty much every weapon into a potential charge blade opportunity, and of course many more things alongside that. There's so much discussion regarding this, to the point that even Games Radar Plus put up a brand new article on this by Hyrian Cryer. I'm going to be leaving a link in the description below to discuss that a little bit further, where they simply mentioned that after Tears of the Kingdom's final trailer, Monster Hunter players adopt Link as one of their own. That makeshift charge blade is going down in a storm. Monster Hunter players have welcomed Link as one of their own after The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom's latest trailer. The final trailer confirmed Ganondorf's grand return and various other gameplay details. One aspect that's been picked up by Monster Hunter fans is that Link joins a spear and a shield together, using his fuse ability to create what resembles a charged blade from Capcom's action-packed Monster Hunter series. And that is, of course, something you should have been seeing already in the image. And I believe I'm going to try to loop the little clip, slow it down a little bit so you can see it further. Now the thing here is that, of course, you don't have the unwind mechanics that you have with the charge blade, for example, where you eventually put on the shield, you have the sword on your hand, you can kind of put them together and then turn them into a big axe or anything like that. That is not really what is happening here. But the thing here is that regarding the fuse mechanic, we haven't seen everything that it has. So maybe there will be some unfusing, profusing, maybe melding type of way for you to be able to take your weapons and turn them into something completely different after they have been fused a couple of times. I do believe there's a little bit of a limit regarding the fusibility. According to the presentation, I believe they just kind of casually mentioned that you can do it once, but of course maybe that is something that you unlock later on in the game, where you can do it multiple times, creating crazy mutation and weapon types at the end of the day. The article also mentions that yes, Monster Hunter fans really have a hive mind. The charged blade is one of the most popular weapons among Monster Hunter players, capable of shredding through even the toughest monster's armor with a collection of supremely powerful and awe-inspiring moves. One popular joke in the comments underneath the original subreddit post is that if you ever ask a charged blade users what the name of the weapon is, they'll answer something along the lines of, "My name is the Legion, for we are many." They are absolutely unhinged that a lot. They are, I guess, referencing some sort of Reddit post or something along those lines. I'm not necessarily sure anything about that, but at the end of the day, the images on Twitter were pretty much the reason why I wanted to talk about this in the first place. They close out the article by simply mentioning that here's hoping Link's charged blade-like weapon has something of a destructive set of capabilities. While bearing in mind that the weapon degradation is returning in Tears of the Kingdom, you'll probably be able to get off roughly 10 strikes of an enemy before the entire thing collapses and falls apart. The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom finally launches next month, May 12th, after several years of long waiting. So of course, this was something that came across my feed, and at the end of the day, I found it extremely amusing, because just the thought of having a charged blade type, maybe even switch axe type changes to your weapons using the melding mechanic. And that is what I think something eventually people will even ask for, or maybe come up with through either mods or just something that they typically will find a way to fuse more than just one or two items together, because of course in the presentation themselves they kind of showcase a stick and then a rock, and it turns it into kind of like a mallet type thing. Well, of course, I assume there will be different versions of that, maybe meld it another time, fuse it another time, and then maybe unfuse it all together at once and reconfigure it one way or another. Of course, the fact that it will still break at the end of the day, probably after one more hit, won't do anyone any justice, or maybe that you can actually fix items on the go now as you're doing that. A lot of the game's ideas is coming across to me personally after watching all the trailers together. It seems like they are just kind of like enhancing what the original game was, and it's just interesting to see them adding so many new mechanics that at the end of the day were things that you wouldn't expect them. Something that players were complaining about, like weapon degradation, was something that a lot of players complain, and you would expect them to just outright remove that, but instead they just kept it. Instead provided players with a different way to worry about weapon degradation at the end of the day. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, of course, in reviews at the end of the day. But more importantly, Monster Hunter players, as the article suggests, seem to have been adopting Link as one of the forefronts of the Charged Blade community because of just that simple little clip in the latest trailer. Now, for me personally, I've never been a Charged Blade user, even when it was originally introduced. I think I tried it out a couple of times. Ultimately, it never clicked for me. I did end up settling for the Switch Axe at the time, so I think that was the weapon that I kind of steered to the most when I was, playing that game. I believe it was 4 when it was introduced it. And I just ended up sticking with the Switch Axe at the end of the day. It was a weapon that at the time I never really played. So it was one of those where, like, yeah, Charged Blade was extremely powerful back then. And it certainly probably was the best days to actually play that weapon. But it just, the entire, you stay with the sword in hand. And then, the shield itself reminded me a lot of Sword and Shield, which I had played already. It was very similar to what I had already played previously, I believe in 3U. So at the end of the day, I just didn't really stick with it. So Switch Axe was more, faster, more movement focused, and I was a big fan of that. Of course, since then I've become a little bit of a range user myself, and I don't necessarily see myself going back. Probably going to the bow in the next game if they kind of keep it the way it has been. But in general, I just don't really see myself going to being a blade master unless they nerf the hell out of range weapons, and then maybe I'll have to. But at the end of the day, I just not really that much of a big fan of blade master weapons for myself. But I certainly want to hear your guys' opinions. Are you not only excited for Tears of the Kingdom, which I know I am, and certainly going to be making some videos on that game once it drops, on top of trying to review it however best as I can, since that game, everyone's experience certainly is going to be very different at the end of the day, seeing how you can just kind of go about it any way you want, no different than Breath of the Wild. You kind of go about it any way you want, and the story becomes secondary as you're exploring the world in whichever way you find enjoyable. If you're brand new to my channel, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, hit the bell to receive notifications when the videos go up, and as always, thank you so much for watching. See ya.